Michael Boyle's StrengthCoach.com presents the Strength Coach Podcast, brought to you by Perform Better, the experts in functional training and rehabilitation. PerformBetter.com.
All right, hey everybody, welcome to episode 261 of the Strength Coach Podcast, the official podcast of Michael Boyle's StrengthCoach.com, the world's best source for strength and conditioning information. Brought to you by Perform Better, the experts in functional training and rehabilitation. PerformBetter.com. All right, I'm your host, Anthony Arena. The show notes are located at my site, ContinueFit.com. It's where I keep all my resources. All right, today on the StrengthCoach.com Coach's Corner, spoke to Coach Boyle about why they haven't been doing carries this summer at MBSC. He did a couple rants, Coach's Corner rants on Soreness for his Instagram post. So I want to talk about that. And his article, Why Almost No One Should Straight Bar Deadlift. For the Results Fitness University Business of Fitness segment, I'm on with Rachel Cosgrove to talk about how to figure out what you should charge for your monthly semi-private rates. For the Functional Movement System segment, Jenna Gourlay is back to talk about a case study she did with a general population client who wanted to run a 5K. Great stuff from Jenna on this one. Today, Adam Doughty talks to Tim Robinson about spin in research. No, not spinning on a bike, but providing a biased interpretation of results. So good stuff from those guys. Check out trainheroic.com. Start your free 14-day trial. Let them know Anthony sent you. You'll save 10% off your first year of the Train Heroic Pro and Elite editions. All right, for the bodybyboyleonline.com, hit the gym with the Strength Coach segment. I have on Drew Massey. Drew is the executive director of Game Time Sports in Columbia, Tennessee. And he's worked so much with high school and middle school athletes, had some teaching experience as well. And I got him on to talk all about high school athletes, some considerations for training, maybe some standards that he might use, his definition of mental toughness, why he thinks jump, throw, sprint is potentially more important than the weight room, and kind of what his thoughts are on Olympic lifting as well, how that leads into what he's going to do for his middle school athletes, and how his 9-year-old daughter Hope has changed some of his ideas about training and learning. That and so much more coming up. Lots of things to get to, so let's get on the phone with Coach Boyle. All right, now it's time for the StrengthCoach.com Coach's Corner with Coach Boyle. StrengthCoach.com, the world's best source for strength and conditioning information. You can try it out for 3 days. Just a buck. You'll have access to all the articles, videos, and programs, as well as what we consider the best forum on the net. It's the only place to have full access to Coach Boyle. He's on every day answering all kinds of questions. So you can check that out at StrengthCoach.com. Coach, how you doing?
I am doing great, Anthony. I want to answer someday like I'm terrible, but I'm really not. I'm always doing great. Get this Saturday, I drive to Pittsburgh with Michaela. She's transferring to Robert Morris. And then I fly from Pittsburgh to Baltimore. Mark actually made the U15 national cross tryouts.
Wow.
Believe it or not, which is pretty cool. So we're going to go to Baltimore for 3 days to go to like a combine in Baltimore. And then, I don't know what I'm doing after that. Then summer's almost over, which is crazy.
Now, and you've been pretty crazy this summer. Has it been, just like a lot with, your kids and, making sure you're doing that? Or have you been working busy?
I've been working busy mainly because of Mark. So Mark's group added another group to my day. So instead of coaching, my normal summer coaching has been 2 groups, and now it's 3.
Okay.
And then I've also had, a couple weeks ago, we had an MLS guy that was in for a week. And then I had Daniel Sturgeon, ex-Liverpool, for a couple of weeks, So like all of a sudden, like everything adds hours to the day. So when you're trying to kind of stack all this stuff in, and then normally I can leave myself 3 or 4, 2 or 3 hours a day to kind of do StrengthCoach.com stuff and write and read. And it's definitely harder to come up with that time when the summer's busy.
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, Mike, speaking of summer, somebody actually asked this question on the forum. And I just wanted to ask a quick question about it. No carries.
No carries. I was like, it's going to be no carries.
Why is it?
Basically, and I said it, I answered it this morning. Logistically, carries are tough when we're busy because having people walking around the weight room, we just don't have another lane that we can free up. So it ends up kind of getting knocked out for the summer because we just have, we've got, sprints and plyos and warm-ups. And I mean, you've been in the place.
Yeah,
so,
yeah,
when it gets going in the summer, you've got, a group, foam rolling and doing their mobility work. And then you've got a group doing dynamic warm-up. And then you've got a group doing sprint and plyo. And then you've got people pushing sleds in there. In spite of the fact that we have a huge amount of room, and that's why I said we've got over 20,000 square feet in Woburn. And God, we use every inch to the point where you're like, wow, it's tough to, to kind of tee up some carries and be able to do it the way that we want to do it. So it just ends up getting dropped out. The other thing too is we try to make the summer programs a little simpler because of how busy we are in the summer too. So it's just, you kind of get into that. Well, something's got to give. And in this case, what gives is carries.
Mike, what about, I know you have that area outside. Do you kind of use that area as like bonus area and you won't rely on it in case it rains? Because you can have them walking around, or you're thinking like a lawyer and you don't want them in the parking lot.
Well, no, it's part of it is thinking about if it rains. That's a part. And also part of it is, do we want to haul all the kettlebells outside every day and inside every day to be able to do that outside in that area? The other part of it is like right now we've been doing more sled sprinting. So we're actually sled sprinting on the new turf that we added. And usually like we end up where we're doing med ball and plyos outside there too, if it's not raining. When we really have trouble is when it rains, then we get real trouble. And that's why I think I'm going to get a couple more of the non-motorized treadmills that, the assault air runners or woodweight curves or something, because when it rains, now we've got, whether we've got tempos, we've got sprints, we've got sled runs, we've got sled pushes. We're doing, I think what happens is we start doing more things that require space. And then that means, and then we've still also got to keep our adult clients happy. That's the other thing that happens with summer is, 50% of our business is adults. And then, during the summer, we inundate these adults with hundreds of kids that they don't see the other 9 months of the year.
Yeah.
And so, we've got to try to maintain that too in terms of, their flow and the quality of their workout. So it just ends up being kind of logistic. And in some ways it's, is it the easy way out? Yeah, it is. And it's like, okay, we'll take the easy way out to some degree and, and not do it.
All right, good stuff. Coach, it's kind of funny. I actually, you have a knack for pissing people off. And so you're...
Oh, you don't either. Everybody thinks you're a nice guy. See, that's the problem. They don't know you.
So your coach's minutes, for the most part, start things up a lot of times when you're just kind of saying some things. But the soreness one, I was like, oh, he finally picked one that no one's really going to argue with. But wow, holy cow. I mean, what arguments do they have that, like, people, like, you don't need to get people sore, and it's not really a good thing. It doesn't mean you're doing anything right. I mean, talk to us about, like, the reaction that you got from that.
Oh, I couldn't believe it. I need to, and I don't know if I'll get it done today or tomorrow, but I get to do another sort of reaction to the reaction, because I thought the same thing, too. Like, no one's going to argue for soreness, right? And one guy told me, this is the end of your business. You don't want anybody to be sore. That was his. And I started looking, and of course, I'm such a loser. I have to look and see, like, who these people are, how old are they, how many followers do they have, all this stuff. And I mean, the good thing is most of the really negative comments were not even very literate and well-written.
Yeah.
Like, oh, people want to be swole. And I'm like, yeah, I guess some people do. And I think it further illustrates sometimes how far removed we actually are from the quote-unquote mainstream. When you think that there are people who, don't think at all about the fact that these people have to go to work, or this kid has to go to practice, or this. I can see why so many people fail at professional sports. And this is why, one of the areas where I really learned this. Guys, I'm talking freaked out when they were sore, to the point where some guys wouldn't lift weights at all because they never wanted to be sore. And then when you realize, you get sensitive to this, because the other thing about that Training the Fast Twitch Athlete article that I wrote, there was a little bit in there where our friend Carl Valley had referenced the fact that some of these super explosive people may have an enzyme that makes them more sensitive to soreness. And there's a little bit of science behind that idea, because that was the other thing that you'd see. It's always kind of the elite sprinter who's always got a little bit of hammy soreness, or, the elite pitcher who's always got a little bit of shoulder soreness. They don't want to have that. And so you kind of transfer that over if you're trying to put a lifting program in place. Like, you don't want, I can remember, this is what I started thinking about. I can remember not being able to sit down on the toilet. Like, I used to say to people, like, oh, what are we going to do? We got to free fall and slam into the seat. We got to put our hands down and try to lower, like what's going to be your strategy today? and I think about how stupid was that we would get people so sore that they literally couldn't lower themselves down to the toilet.
Yeah.
And think that was okay. And I did it. And this is my whole point. And then some people were like, one guy literally said, I'm actually going to respond to his. He said, oh, don't backtrack. You're on video. And I went back and listened to the video, and I never said that, you're never going to be sore.
Yeah.
What I said is we want to minimize the soreness. Ideally, and I think I said the word ideally, we'd like someone to never be sore. I know that's not going to happen. I know when you introduce a new exercise or change rep ranges, but you know what I always say to my athletes? And people say, like, well, what should I feel like tomorrow? I say, you should get out of bed tomorrow and be like, I worked out. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, you get up and you're like, I'm like a little sore. Like I worked out, but not, oh my God, I feel like a freaking robot. I come back in and I can barely walk. There's nothing intelligent, desirable. No one wants to feel that way. Or if someone does, now one of the guys literally said, talk to Jay Cutler. I'm like, really? Like, that's the example that you're going to give
yeah.
me. Jay Cutler. I was like, serious. I couldn't make the stuff up that comes in on my feed. That's why some people say, I have friends who say, I just live for the comments. They said, I don't even really care what you say. I just love to hear what people say about what you say.
Yeah, yeah.
So true. I bring out sometimes the dumbness in people in a way that is unfathomable.
It's a gift. Yeah. But one thing I will say, and I kind of started to think about this, is that, you talked about the bubble that we're in sometimes, and you forget what's on the outside world, but also our clients are coming in, and it might be a good idea, instead of waiting for the question, hey, what am I going to feel like? Actually talk to them about it, educate them about it. Like, hey, we don't want to be sore, because a lot of people, like, I've heard that a million times. Well, I'm sore. That's a good thing, right? Like almost like kidding around, or like serious though. Like, they really think that, like, oh, it couldn't have been a good workout. So I think it's something where we do have to remember about the bubble, and we do have to kind of educate people. Like, listen, you're not going to be sore. We're going to slowly progress this. And we're going to, we don't want you to be sore. We want you to be able to get back on the ice, on the field, on the whatever, play with your grandkids, whatever, and slowly, slow cook this.
Right. Yeah. And you're right. I do that too. And I really, especially with new people, in terms of, because they will, I always tell people, I say that because for me, I'm literally like a freaking cliche book, like one of those, you can just put it on continuous loop and it just plays the same shit over and over again. Yeah. That's me in terms of, because I'll say that to people in terms of, I don't want you, like, my goal is for you not to be sore. My goal is for you to, because think about it this way. Like, you want someone to come 2 to 3 days a week. When is the maximum delayed onset muscle soreness? 2 days. 2 days, right? Yeah. Which means, if you've got someone and you want them to come Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and you do sort of, what I guess some people would think of as the typical workout, that person's maximal muscle soreness will be Wednesday. They'll feel the worst on Wednesday. They don't want to come back. And that's what, and I talk about this all the time, kind of in reference to the CrossFit idea. if your goal is to get people to come back, you don't want them to be so sore that they don't want to come back. You don't want someone to be like, oh my God, I can't go back there again because I'm going to be, I can barely move now. And now I'm going to try to go in there and they're going to do this to me again. And what will I feel like? What will Friday feel like? Like if this is Wednesday after Monday, what could possibly happen to me on Friday? And so, this is the stuff I really believe that people just don't think enough about it. And as I said, I think for me, coming from the pro sports world is where you really get sensitive to it, because you get guys who just like, I'm never lifting again. I've had guys literally say that early on. I'm never lifting with you again, ever. Yeah. I'm so sorry. I can't. I'm afraid to go to practice today. I'm afraid I'm going to hurt myself.
Yeah.
And you get people like, oh, you got to talk to him about it. And I'm like, you can't talk to $1 million player who's lost their faith in you because you did something stupid. Yeah. It just doesn't work that way. And this is where I think, one of the guys was really mad. I'm in the sports performance business. He called me King Michael, actually, in the comments. He said, King Michael, I'm in the same boat as you or something. And I was kind of like, I don't know if you are. Because until you've had, like, and this is where you talk about learning by your mistakes, those kind of things, until you've been in that situation where you've really screwed somebody up or screwed up your relationship with somebody, then you're not in the same shoes that I'm in. And I've been in that situation. This is how I've learned. Because again, the one thing I try to tell everybody all the time is whatever I say to somebody as, okay, this is a mistake, this is a don't, this is a, don't do this kind of thing. It's 99.9% of the time, it's because I did it already. Yeah. It's not because I didn't do it already. Yeah. And that's what I think people don't understand a lot of times is people are like, oh, one guy said, oh, you've stopped learning. Now you just call exercises bad and tell people what not to do. And I'm kind of like, no, that's maybe that is the byproduct of learning. And I'm still learning. Don't get me wrong. I'm still learning. But I do have some basic understanding now of, okay, these are mistakes that I've made that I don't want to repeat. Because I think, to me, shouldn't that be a big part of learning? Okay, here's a mistake. I made that mistake. All right, don't do that again. Right? Like, I look at that and think that to me is perfectly logical. Then as a teacher, as an instructor, whatever, and I think, okay, perfectly logical. Well, the next perfectly logical thing would be to then have me say to people, okay, I don't want you to do this because I did this and it didn't work out well. Isn't that, I guess, in some ways part of the teaching? Yeah, obviously. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so I guess, but that's why I struggle. Yeah. But you were right though. That was what I thought. Like, I was like, okay, this is a layup. It's a Mel Siff quote. It's not even mine. Yeah. But it definitely related to the topic. And it was actually, I read, there was a Simply Faster article that I read that had the any idiot can train another idiot for a year. And I was like, yeah, that's really true. Yeah. And Ken, I want to say Ken's last name is like Jafalski or something, who wrote the article. It was a really good article. But that led me, when I was looking for that quote, it led me to that other Mel Siff quote. And I'm not a huge super training fan, but I really did like that quote because I thought, yeah, that's what you should be striving for. If you've got elite athletes, what they want to do, they want to go to practice to get better. They want to play in games. You're the dentist as the strength and conditioning coach. You're one of these, okay, I got to do this, but I don't want to. Yeah. And you've got to know that you're the dentist. You're not the ice cream man. You know what I mean? You're not like, okay, I can't wait for somebody, can't wait to get in the weight room so Mike can make me cripplingly sore so I can have a shitty practice tomorrow. Like, that's not what they're thinking. They're thinking, okay, I have to go in, and this is where we get into like minimal effective dose. Like, what's the least I can do to keep the quantities that I need to keep during the course of the season, to keep myself healthy, to keep myself from getting injured, to maintain my speed. And again, I think you apply that to the average office worker. Isn't that what they want? Like, what's the least I can do to have good heart health? what's the least I can do to have the body that I want? Not, can I go in and flagellate myself and just beat myself to a bloody pulp with the idea that maybe whatever's left over will be good. And I think that's the part that a lot of people don't get. And the people that don't get it, it's really interesting. They all tend to be lifters themselves. I think there's definitely some benefit to like being somebody like me who's older. I mean, I don't lift anymore. I haven't really seriously lifted since the 80s. And so my mindset is very, very different.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Mike, too, really quick before I ask the next question, but look, you just mentioned like 50% of your clients are adult clients. And that's where we have gone wrong with so many people who are like, I went to a trainer. I couldn't walk for 2 days. Trainers suck, because they throw them all in the same boat. So I think it's, not only for the athletes and the $1 million players, but, we really need to, this applies to everybody. So,
right.
Coach, last 2 minutes, because we posted a recommended article. Stack's been doing some stuff from you, and we posted that, and you posted a video kind of with an overview on strengthcoach.com. But I just had a really quick question about it. No one should deadlift. That's almost no one should deadlift. That was your straight bar deadlift. Sorry, why they should almost no one should almost straight bar deadlift. But you justify the front squat for the clean, okay? Why shouldn't I do a slightly bent, formerly straight leg deadlift, or I can piss you off and call it the Romanian deadlift? If that's going to prepare the athlete for the clean, they have to know how to do that if they're going to clean. You said just power lifters should be straight bar deadlifting, but shouldn't our athletes be doing it as well?
Well, we never clean from the floor.
Okay, from the floor.
So deadlifting doesn't matter. We are always, you've been in our gym, we're always hang position above the knees. We're always taking the bar off blocks. So we never deadlift a straight bar ever. It's just.
But what if you deadlifted it from? What if you picked it up from the blocks? Like from where
from
you're
the blocks. I mean, I guess you're doing a very, I guess it'd be almost like rack pull or something.
Yeah, I guess
it's pretty high. It's like mid shin, and it's pretty easy. So, but it's funny. I've been tossing the front squat thing around in my head the last couple of weeks because of that same reason. You know what I mean? It's like we might need the front squat to get people better at hang clean. So, and somebody had asked me about that the other day, and I started thinking I might experiment with that with my middle school group just to see, okay, what would front squats be like? And we haven't done front squats in a really long time, but I start looking at, I've got kids, younger kids that are going to have to get to be better Olympic lifters over the course of time. And they might do well with a kind of, a dose of front squats. Yeah. So again, I think one of the good things about is, evolving can be revolving. How's that?
Oh, nice.
You know what I mean? Like you could be going around in a circle in terms of, okay, I've been evolving, and I evolved out of back squats and into front squats and out of front squats and into split squats. And now suddenly I'm thinking, maybe I need to go back to front squat here, at least as it relates to clean, at least looking at it and saying, hey, do I need, if I want these kids to be able to clean 225 at some point during their high school career, should they be able to front squat 225? So, and we, somebody asked me that yesterday because we've kind of tapped out Goblet. Like we've got them at the point where, they're at the 100, 105 level, 14 years old. Most of them are say in the 140 range. We'll quickly get to 120. Like we're going to run out of dumbbells at some point. Yeah. And then you start looking and thinking, okay, does it make sense with this crowd to throw some front squat at them? And I'm thinking about that for the fall. To just because one thing I do like, I really love having groups that you can experiment with a little bit because it's both fun and interesting, so that I enjoy the process, and I find the process really interesting in terms of it makes me, you're forced to think. You're in a situation where you're like, okay, I need to think about this.
Yeah, I'm exhausted, man, from my 4 hockey players that I've been doing for 8 weeks. I get out of those sessions, and I have been doing the front squats And part of it was to handle that clean. And also, I talked to you about this last time on the podcast. They can't, two of them can't get into that elbows up. So I just kind of reinforce it with the front squat. And I'm not going over the clean weight, but I'm just making sure whatever they're doing for cleans, we can at least front squat that a little heavier than the clean. So
right. And I think in all reality, I think that may be logical. And I think I may find myself, eating my words, going backwards, doing something different. I don't know how. I'm sure my detractors will view it differently.
There you
in terms
go.
Of backpedaling. There'll be some something they can accuse me of doing.
Yeah, well, because they'll all be sore from the front squats. Coach, I'm going to let you go, and we will talk to you next time.
All right, thanks, Ian.
All right, guys, right now at Perform Better, they got the big summer sale going on, 40% off so many items. It's their biggest sale of the year. It's the best time to upgrade your equipment or, kind of fill in the blanks with some things that you don't have. So 40% off. Don't forget, too, the Perform Better Functional Institute Dry Needling Seminar on September 13th and 14th, and the Speaker School on September 19th to 21st. You can check it out at performbetter.com for all their products and info on their educational seminars.
Hey everyone, I'm Jenna, and today I would like to share with you an FMS case. This is one of my favorite cases because it takes one of my clients that was a rather sedentary individual and shows her journey with movement. When she first came in and wanted to be trained, she really wasn't physically active. She was just starting to get back into it. And it shows the immense power that the screen can have on clients that are just everyday people, not necessarily our athletes, not necessarily people that are, competing at higher levels, but that just want to have a really good movement base and want to move more. Now, this client, we'll call her Sara. Her name's been changed, but none of the other details of the case have been. Sara was a 36-year-old female. She had just lost 30 pounds from a new diet and was starting to get back into activity. The only thing that was in her past medical history that was of any importance was that she has had a history of low back pain in the past. Not bothering her now, but it had been a previous problem. So like we said, Sara had just lost a lot of weight. She was starting to take classes at the gym and just getting back into physical activity in general. She also told me another benefit was that this is the first time that she actually hadn't had low back pain since high school. And she decided that she wanted to run her very first 5K. But she came in to see me because she felt like she had gotten to week 4 of this app that took her from couch to 5K. And at week 4, all of a sudden she had plateaued. She couldn't run the amount of time that it wanted her to run. And she was feeling really fatigued in the middle and especially at the end of her runs. Now, her first 5K at this point isn't for 3 months, so we do have some time to work with her. Now, the first thing that I want to do is I want to see where Sara is in terms of her movement. I want to see how she moves and if any of the movement brings on that previous low back pain or any other pain that she may have. Now, if we look at how she scored, she got a 2 on her squat. She got 2s on her hurdle step. Those are good. Her inline lunge, though, she got a 1 on the right and a 1 on the left. Her shoulder mobility, straight 3s. Her active straight leg raise, again, straight 3s. Her trunk stability push-up was a 1, and her rotary stability was a 1 on the right and on the left. Just to give you a picture of what she looked like when she was doing some of these patterns, in her inline lunge, she really couldn't even get to the starting position without losing her balance. The second I tried to take away the dowel, she would either step off the board, and if she got her balance, she'd lose it on the way down. Her trunk stability push-up, just to give you a visual again, she couldn't push up all the way without losing her lumbar spine position. So she actually looked similar to what she looked like when she was doing the prone press-up, except she was trying to do a push-up. And then her rotary stability, either she lost her balance or she couldn't necessarily touch her elbow directly to her knee. The other thing that we have in addition to the 7 patterns is our motor control screen for both the upper and the lower body. This screen, if you haven't seen it, is similar to the Y balance test, but we're using just one direction to get a snapshot of her motor control. Now, the cool thing about the motor control screen is that where the patterns are categorical, you got a 1, 2, or 3, the motor control screen offers a more numerical representation of our motor control. This is going to be useful to gauge the effectiveness or sometimes the ineffectiveness of our corrective exercise choices. We may actually get to see an increase in her motor control screen before we see a full scoring change in her pattern. Now, for Sara, she's actually lower than we'd expect in all 4 quadrants, those 4 quadrants being the right and the left upper body, and then the right and the left lower body. Based on her foot length, we would expect that she would get greater than 54 centimeters, but on her right upper limb and her left upper limb, she gets 48 and 47 respectively. Her lower body is a little better, and she gets 51 on the right and 53 on the left. The patterns that leverage her mobility, her shoulder mobility, and her active straight leg raise were fine. They were all 3s. But we do have some problems in her fundamental and her functional pattern. We're going to want to fix her fundamental patterns, her rotary stability and her trunk stability push-up, before we fix her more functional pattern of the inline lunge. And then between rotary stability and trunk stability push-up, we're going to look at rotary stability first, because the split pattern allows us to expose any differences that the straight pattern of the trunk stability push-up may cover up. For her correctives, we started with her hard and her soft rolling. Where hard rolling is more a global pattern, soft rolling allows us to dial in on more of that local control at her core. Once she was doing well there, we moved up into the quadruped position, and we had her work on some quadruped diagonals, or more or less bird dogs. Now, after we did this, we still saw 1s on the rotary stability, but we did start to see a change in terms of her upper body motor control and her lower body motor control. Her upper body motor control increased 5 centimeters bilaterally, and her lower body motor control increased 4 centimeters on the right and 3 centimeters on the left. This is telling us that we're on the right track and that her body likes the exercises or the correctives that we're giving it. We then moved on to some bear crawls to further challenge the motor control requirements of the pattern. And as I got up from demonstrating, she started laughing. She's like, I didn't even crawl as a kid. Apparently, her parents told her that when she was an infant, she literally went from rolling around on the floor to getting up onto her knees, walking on her knees, and then eventually walking on her feet, essentially skipping crawling altogether. And I have to tell you that I completely believe this story once she got down on the floor to demonstrate to me a bear crawl. No matter how hard she tried, she could not get the reciprocal patterning. Her right arm and her right knee moved at the same time, or her left knee and her left arm moved at the same time. She could not move opposite sides. It just wasn't happening. To make it easier, we then went to a 6-point crawl where her knees could touch the ground. So she struggled through that for a bit, and after that, she was able to do the 6-point crawl reciprocally. We went up again into that bear crawl pattern, and she could do a few in a row before she somehow reverted back to same side. Now, after the bear crawls, it was like something clicked. Her rotary stability was bilaterally 2s, and her motor control screen jumped up to passing scores in each quadrant. Now, I thought this was awesome, but nothing compares to the look on her face when she realized that she was now pushing 57 centimeters with her right and her left arm. These were obviously going to be her exercises for home, and she asked me a follow-up question that everyone asks, and that is, so can I keep running? Now, she is a previously sedentary individual that has built momentum with her running. And I know that we have time before her 5K, but the last thing that I want to do is undermine that progress that she's made. And I go back to what she told me. She told me that she didn't have any fatigue or much difficulty with week 3 of the running program. So instead of moving from week 4 to week 5, we actually moved from week 4 back to week 3 so that way she could keep training, keep the momentum, but with a much lower demand. The deal was, though, that she had to be able to string together 5 consecutive bear crawls in a row before she went out on her run. Now, before she left, I did recheck her inline lunge to see if there was any change in the functional pattern after the change in the fundamental pattern. And she could get in the starting position easier, but she was still a 1, even though I could tell that she was getting closer. The next session she came in and she reported that redoing week 3 had went well. And in fact, she said that the week was so much easier than it had been the first time, and she felt like if she was allowed to, she could have increased those intervals. On rechecking, she had maintained her motor control and her rotary stability, and she now had a passing inline lunge score. Her push-up, however, was still far from being a 2. So we began working on her push-up. Even though she had 2s on the lunge, we still want to work on this fundamental pattern, especially knowing that she had a history of low back pain. We know that the push-up pattern is more about posture and spinal integrity than it is about doing a push-up. She needs to have a good push-up, more for her alignment and to decrease her likeliness to compensate and give up her spinal integrity while she's physically active. This did prove challenging because she fatigued very quickly when we were working on the pattern. It did take 2.5, probably 3 weeks before she did get a 2 on the pattern. We started with just being able to hold a plank, focusing on that pelvic positioning. As soon as she would get fatigued, the first thing that she would do is to dump her pelvis and go into like a lumbar lordosis. Because she got so tired doing the pattern, we worked on different positions. So we worked on her ability to maintain the alignment under load in a kneeling position. And then we worked on a hanging progression that she could do at home because she stated that she had a pull-up bar and she wanted to finally be able to use it. Now, later on, we went to some shoulder taps. Again, maintaining that pelvic positioning. This was key for her throughout every exercise that we did. And then we went to an eccentric push-up with pelvic control. We started at an incline and then we worked our way closer and closer to the ground. She was only allowed to lower herself down eccentrically as far as she could, keeping that good pelvic alignment. And then we also did some assisted push-ups to get her working through the entire pattern altogether. Now, when we look at where she ended up, her rotary stability went from a 1 to a 2 bilaterally. We took her push-up from a 1 to a 2, and her inline lunge went from a 1 to a 2 as well. Now, if we look at her motor control, her upper body, she went from 48 on the right to 57. That's an increase of 9 centimeters. And then she went from a 47 on the left to a 57 on the left, a 10 centimeter increase. This tells us that she has much better motor control, especially at the limits of her stability. We saw a very similar increase in terms of her lower body as well. She went from a 51 on the right to a 58, increase of 7 centimeters, and then 53 to 59, increase of 6 centimeters on the left. So actually all 4 of her quadrants increased through working through the correctives. So Sara was super pumped to come in and tell me that she ran the entire 5K, that she didn't have to walk a single step. She did go on to do 3 more after that, which brings us more to the present, which is about a year after I met Sara, and now she's training for her first 10K. It's such a cool case because this is an individual that was sedentary, that really didn't do much and didn't want to do much. And now it's someone that's training for a 10K. It's such a good reminder that competency with movement fuels confidence with movement, and people that feel like they move better want to move more. It truly upholds the principle of move well, then move often. And my favorite part of the entire thing is that I got to be there for her journey of movement from the very beginning. I got to see her go from, I don't think I can complete week 4 of this movement or this 5K app, all the way to, yeah, I'm going to train for a 10K. And I would not be surprised if eventually I hear that she's training for a half marathon or maybe even a full.
All right, now it's time for the Results Fitness University Business of Fitness segment. I am here with Rachel Cosgrove. Rachel, thanks for doing this.
Thanks for having me.
All right, cool. Here's something that I know I kind of spent a lot of time on when I changed from, one-on-one to semi-private. But look, it doesn't matter if you're changing from anything. You need to know these. And that was the monthly fee for semi-private rates, because I think, we can look at, what's your rent. I even threw in, I think I did something like, okay, people are going to come in. The most they're going to come in is 12 times, 3 times a week. And I'm giving them a bottle of Poland Spring water that I was getting from Costco, which cost me 25 cents each. So I really did throw in that, 75 cents a week, that extra $3. I just kind of included it like, what is this really costing me? So can you talk about, I even broke down the rent, like what's the rent every day? I tried to figure all that out. What are some of the factors that you take into when you're determining monthly semi-private rates?
So yeah, it's a great question. I think like you said, there's a lot of different factors because you have to take your own costs into effect. So your 2 biggest expenses in any business are going to be your rent, like you mentioned. So depending on what kind of rent you've signed on the dotted line for, that's definitely going to be part of your expenses that you'll need to factor in. Some people get great deals on their rent, so they can, they have a little more wiggle room. If you have a larger rent that you're paying every month, then you definitely got to make sure you're charging enough to, make enough money so that you're going to have money left over. So rent and then payroll. And so you definitely want to think about, I think a lot of people, when we start offering semi-private, you might be running solo. Maybe it's you training your clients. And so you're not thinking ahead about how much would I have to pay somebody, as I hire coaches, and, what would be the going. So we want to look at the going rate for, personal trainers in your area, how much are they making and what would that look like? So that you set yourself up to be able to build a team and, build a business. So it's not you doing all of the coaching and, not realizing that there are costs involved when you have payroll. And then, what are people going to pay? And I think, there is definitely like price points that when you get over certain price points, people are going to, you're going to have a much lower conversion when people come in. So, for us, like we've been $297 a month has worked great. I think under the $300 a month price point, especially when they're signing an annual agreement, does work well. So then figuring out, sometimes it's not necessarily figuring out how much you should charge, but maybe you find that right price point. So you find, okay, $297 converts well, people are signing up for it. Okay, now what can I actually give for the $297? Like you're saying, can I give them a water bottle? Can I give them, 3 sessions a week, or is it only 2 sessions a week? Can I give them access to the gym? So over the years, we've actually kept our price point pretty much the same, and we've just decreased what we give them, so instead of raising our prices, looking at, how can you, basically get, you're ending up, they're paying the same, but it's not costing you as much, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I actually, I threw in, because I had a putting green and a place to hit golf balls. So I threw that into, hey, like into my monthly, like as a value add, like, like, hey, listen, you're going to get, unlimited sessions, which I did say unlimited sessions because I was dealing with older folks, right? Like people 50 and over. My buddy Frank Dolan, he was like, I can never do that because like the parents will just drop the kids off every single day. He said he had a few people that were literally like the young kids in high school would come there every day if you said the unlimited kids. So like I wouldn't be able to do that. You have to obviously take your demographic into account with that.
Yeah, and I don't recommend unlimited. We did unlimited for a period of time, and we are undoing unlimited because it causes a lot of problems with scheduling. Like you're saying, people can schedule, all week long, and whether they show up or not doesn't matter. So definitely, really consider if you're going to offer unlimited that should be a really much higher price point. But overall, there are so many factors. It is hard to like really narrow down in a 3-minute conversation. But I would say just make sure you've run the numbers. And like I said, we've really landed on that 297. We find when we went over 300, our conversions dropped quite a bit. So then we went back to 297 and just decreased what we offered. So right now we do they get 2 semi-private coaching sessions, and they get 2 group classes for the $297. So if they want unlimited group classes, then they bump up to $349. So, but most of our members do the $297. They get, and for us, 4 workouts a week is typically what most of our members do. So we basically went with what the most members do. And when you look at that, if you have like 8 sessions a month, so 297 divided by 8, you're at 37 a session. So if you have 4 in each session, your revenue is at just under 150 per hour. So when you're going to be paying a coach, depending on what the hourly going rate in your area is for a personal trainer, you got a good amount of leeway there, so even if there doesn't end up being 4 in each session, and if there's only say 2 in each session, if you're paying the coach still, like 30 to 40 an hour, you're going to be fine. So those are the kinds of things to take a look at is, definitely the going rate. I mean, for us, payroll, because we have someone else writing the training programs, we have different layers and levels within our system. The actual hour is going to be 15 to 25 to coach the client. And then you're going to have someone else writing the program. That's going to be an additional, 15 to 25 to write the program. So, taking all of those costs into account. That's the biggest thing I would say is just don't just put a random number out there, really think through. I think I like the 297 number because I like thinking like if you get 300 members is kind of like a number most of us are shooting for, I think for a lot of people when they join our coaching group, that first, we want to get them up to 100 members and then 200 members. And then, the $1 million mark would be, if you had 300 members at 297, you'd have your $1 million business. So kind of a good number to shoot for.
Very cool. One last question on this. I remember when you guys were advising me, I think or you were advising everybody at the time, you were going per person in the group. So if I'm the trainer and you were paying me $12 per person per hour. So if I had 3 people, I was making $36 an hour as a new employee. That's the way I was looking at it. I'm like, if I start somebody off at 12, they're making more than they would make at Equinox, right? Obviously, if one person showed up, that's only $12 that they're making.
Right, but then they're motivated to have more people show up.
Yeah,
so
obviously.
Yeah. So, I like that model. We currently are on an hourly model, but I like having, it's because the only reason we're on an hourly is because we did offer unlimited for a period of time. I actually really like doing the per client because I do think it motivates the trainer to get, 3 to 4 clients in an hour. It also motivates them to get their renewals and, really retention is, they're rewarded for retention. So that works well. And then, like you said, they can make, more per hour than they would if they were at another gym. And so when you have clients that are signing up on an annual agreement, you're really guaranteeing your trainers an annual salary, like you're guaranteed an annual income. So it's, for people that are working for you, it works out to be a win-win because they know that client signed up for the year. So, it's not like they have to sell them another 10 sessions next month, so it really does build a stable, sustainable model that, your trainers can really feel like, okay, yes, I'm going to be able to make, 25 to 35 an hour, consistently because these people are signing up for the year. And, okay, these people are paying $297 a month. So, I know I can promise my trainer that I can pay them because, they're signing up for the year.
Yeah.
And I feel like that $297 number is definitely a good price point that people will sign up for the year. And it is, of course, like New York City is going to be a completely different animal, or, so it's hard to put
of course,
a blanket statement, but definitely run your numbers, and find that happy spot. But don't forget to think about, if you do find a good number that converts well, now back up and look at what can you give them for that number, So don't be afraid to give less instead of always raising your prices.
All right. Very cool. All right, Rachel, thanks for doing this, and we'll talk to you next time.
Thanks for having me. And for more information, go ahead and check out resultsfitnessuniversity.com.
Hey, this is Adam.
And this is Tim.
Welcome to the Train Heroic Data-Driven Coaching segment.
Let's go.
Let's talk about spin in research.
Ooh, I love this.
So, you may not know this, but people are biased.
They sure are.
And this includes scientists in certain circumstances, right?
Okay.
Like you get attached to your own work, obviously. You think what you do is important. And journals have a reason to want to publish interesting things.
Right, and that's the thing that kind of catches me is... You say, journals want to publish these interesting articles, right? Something that's going to grab people's attention, coaches in our, and sports scientists in our, in this example. But it's often like people spin their research to fit a result that they want, but couldn't them not achieving that result be, just as interesting as them, achieving that thing? Does that make sense?
I mean, the word is important because the word interesting, no, it's not as interesting to say, well, shrug, I didn't find anything that interesting.
Yeah.
But important, yeah. Like if I do, drug research and I run 10, studies or something,
right,
and 9 of them find the drug does basically nothing, but one of them finds some outsized effect for whatever reason, it could just be randomness at that point.
Sure.
Probability, it might just happen, right? Then it's important that I know about all 10 of those.
Yeah, okay.
Right? But there's a real phenomenon, the file drawer effect, where non-interesting results don't get published at the same rate as interesting ones.
Got it.
And that's a real problem. So, but, where does the spin happen is kind of the important thing. It's let's talk about abstracts, right?
Cool.
And so it's one thing, and this doesn't, don't always take step backs. It's not that people maybe are intentionally trying to spin their work.
Right.
People are just fallible, right? I think just people are, naturally they can make errors, they can miss their own biases. That's just how the world is.
Totally.
But it happens, and there was just a paper that came out that actually looked at a sample of journal articles in psychiatry and psychology, in which the findings were not statistically significant. So what they did was they looked at the abstracts of these papers where the findings maybe weren't super strong.
Okay.
Right? At least from a statistical standpoint.
Sure.
And what they found, these authors found in over half of them that there was evidence of spin going on in the abstract, meaning maybe the authors were trumping up what was found to some degree.
Got it. And as a coach, someone who's not I'm not right in there in the the nitty gritty with the research community. So I'm pulling these things up in the morning before lifts, right? Just trying to learn a little bit, or maybe at the end of the day. Mm-hmm. How could someone in my role, kind of try and avoid that, or get to the heart of the matter reading these articles without being, not duped, but being misled perhaps?
Yeah, so it's hard because sometimes these things, you have to read the paper, unfortunately.
Good point.
And I'm going to give you a specific example. Let me go here and click into my browser and pull up this So there's a paper I've seen batted around online, and this was written at full credit. I subscribed to Mass, which is the Greg Nuckols and Friends research review, and they wrote about it this time because I think this paper's come up, and it's an interesting finding, but it may be in the right context. So the title of this article is Evidence of a Ceiling Effect for Training Volume in Muscle Hypertrophy and Strength in Trained Men. Less is more?
Question mark.
And basically, if you read the abstract, it just says, hey, we trained these people with different amounts of volume, like 5, 10, 15, or 20 sets per muscle group per week, yada, yada, yada. They did it for 6 months. And in the conclusion, the last sentence says, 5 to 10 sets per week might be sufficient for bringing about optimal gains in muscle size and strength in trained men over a 24-week period.
Okay.
Well, that sounds really interesting.
Sure.
Because you're answering an interesting question. How much should people train?
Yeah.
And these people seem to have the answer. Like they found, the graphs look really good. The numbers look plausible.
That's something that would pique my interest.
Right.
Yeah.
But if you read the study, right, what becomes evident is that they were training 1 time per week.
Oh.
Right? So there's a big difference between 5 sets in a session and 20.
Correct.
Right? There's a big difference across the week too, but one of those things is not at all like the other.
Yeah.
Right? And so, a better conclusion might be, hey, in trained men, training 1 time a week, right? There appears to be a per session limit of how much is beneficial.
Yeah.
And, even more might even be worse in that case because you might just be overtraining.
Yeah.
Right? And so, I think that, this just goes to say, hey, ResearchGate's a good resource. A lot of times you'll find papers on there. ResearchGate is a real one. Okay. There are some gray market sources that we mentioned. University. If you're at a university, the library has subscriptions, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
If you're out in the world on your own, then it's harder. That's all there is to it.
Yeah, and I think one takeaway here is the abstract is kind of almost designed to be interesting, right? It's going to grab your attention, but you got to read and you got to kind of cross-reference these papers with other ones. Get a whole collection of data for yourself and for your athletes.
That's going to do it for us today. Go to trainheroic.com to start your 14-day free trial. When you're talking to one of our representatives, tell them Strength Coach Podcast sent you for 10% off a year of the Pro Elite Edition.
All right, now it's time for the Body by Boyle Online.com. Hit the gym on the Strength Coach segment. Become an insider to Mike Boyle's strength and conditioning with staff meetings, in-services, and complete access to the MBSC programs. We've been posting a lot of in-services that we've been doing. Kevin Larrabee just did something. We did something from Coach Boyle, something from Devin McConnell, Allie Gilbert. So a lot of stuff on bodybyboyleonline.com. Check it out. All right, today I got my friend Drew Massey on. Drew is the executive director of Game Time Sports in Columbia, Tennessee, just south of Nashville. And for those of you that want to check out a pretty good Strength Coach TV, check out my episode at Game Time because Drew and I had a great conversation, which we actually had to do twice because it didn't record, right?
That's right. That's right. I forgot about that.
So Drew actually played football in college at Bethel College, and he got his degree in kinesiology there, and was actually on the coaching staff there as well. So a little bit of kind of the player that goes in. He wasn't that guy though. He wasn't that guy. We'll talk to him a little bit about that in a minute. Just let me do what I did. And then he's got his master's in performance enhancement and injury prevention as well. Worked at the Y as a wellness director, and was a big experience for him as well.
I did.
But now, hey, he's the HRIC. At Game Time, head redneck in charge.
I'll take that. I will wear that with distinction. I love that.
Drew, thanks for doing this, buddy.
Hey, thank you. And before we get started, I can't thank you enough for having me on. It is, like I told you earlier, to me, this is the gold standard from which I judge all podcasts. So for me to be a guest on here is quite an honor, Anthony. So thank you so much.
I appreciate the kind words. And I will say, I did this in my lecture at Perform Better, and I said one of the bonus lessons when I was talking about, starting the Strength Coach podcast 12 years ago was, I just kind of said, ask Coach Boyle. I said, hey, look, I got a great idea. Would you be interested in doing this podcast? And so that's a lesson I was talking to people. The answer to every unasked question is no. And so after the lecture, Drew said to me, he's like, I want to be on the podcast, and I did, and that was so. Guys, you got to ask. Drew, I'm glad you asked.
Well, that in and of itself was kind of a one of those little, nudges that I thought about. Like I always kind of thought, well, if I'm good enough, people will ask me, and I don't want to like be pushy or whatever. But then at the end of the day, like you have to get to this point where you're like, hey, like I think we do a pretty good job here, and we'd like to get the message out. So, like you said, it never hurts to ask, because the worst thing that can happen is you say no.
Yeah, and
so,
I will say, like, you got to remember too is, I've known you for a long time, and
Yes, sir.
but what I base a lot of my stuff on is I'm looking on the internet at articles or, some videos, not so much like an Instagram thing for the most part, but like I'll look at like some YouTube videos or articles, and, people will be talking about it or sharing, and that's what I'll be like, oh, I'm going to get this guy to expand a little bit more. So,
Yep.
though it's a good point that you don't want to think, hey, if I'm good enough, they'll ask me. You got to send it out there.
Yeah, I think that was the wrong mindset actually for me for a couple of years. It's I think that was just kind of the wrong way to go about it. I think it's more and when you said that in the lecture at Perform Better, which was a phenomenal lecture, by the way, I was like, you know what, he's right. Like I'm never going to be able to do this if I don't ask somebody. So luckily I caught you after, and here we are. So
there we go.
Thank you.
Now, I was listening to another podcast you were on, Mike Robertson's podcast, actually, and I found it interesting that you're actually a health teacher. And I think what's really interesting about your background, being a wellness director at the Y, and then, you were doing some substitute teaching, and you were a health teacher for a little bit. And I think, it kind of lends itself to a guy who now is really working with a lot of middle school and high school athletes. How did that experience really kind of help you doing what you're doing now?
Coming into it, like you said, it's something that I started to do right out of college, because you're not going to come out of college working, having your own facility or being the director of a facility. Like you gotta take those steps, and you gotta kind of pay your dues a little bit. And a way that I could do that was I could be a substitute teacher, and I got to see a little bit, doing that, but I also that's when I kind of started working with the YMCA, and they deal with a lot of youth as well. Especially where I was from, they had a great youth program where a lot of kids would come over after school, because that was their after school care. And parents could come pick them up here in Columbia. And so, after I left the Y, I thought, what a great opportunity would be to do a high school strength conditioning coach job. And luckily, an interim position opened up, and I applied for it and got that. So for 2 years, I got to be kind of in the hallways and in the classroom and things with some of these youth athletes. And there was just a really big need for quality strength and conditioning at that level. I mean, you think about quality strength and conditioning, it's really easy, when you get like at a D1 place, or maybe even in the professional ranks, if you talk to some of those guys, because they're dealing with these athletes that are incredibly, incredibly gifted. And at the high school level, at the middle school level, like you're kind of, you have to make the most of what you are dealt with, of what you are dealt rather. And, so having a great system and having a great template to, hey, what builds quality athleticism, and how do we get these kids training right and teaching them the right ways, and instilling things like discipline and grit, and, do what you're supposed to do, be on time, some of those mental toughness things. I have a little bit different definition of mental toughness, but it was just a great way to do that. So it got me involved that way. And I took it and ran with it. And we opened up Game Time after 2 years in the high school ranks. And here's where we are today. So
nice.
That's a little bit of that. Yeah.
I think, one thing, I just finished up 8 weeks with 4 hockey players. I've been talking about it on the show. And one of the things that I really found, one kid is like amazing athlete. I actually had him for, he's 15. Going on 16, and I've been training him like for 3 years, just like in the summers, when hockey season's over, and like really teaching him a lot of stuff, like not we never got too crazy with load. I didn't try to meet any standards. But one of the things now with the other guys in there who really never lifted, the other three never really lifted much, except for, some of the, the kind of the hockey coach might do some stuff with them, or at hockey camp they do some stuff. But it's never anything where, you're like, we talk about doing a lot of, repeated stuff where they're going to learn kind of repeating stuff over and over so they get that exposure to these things. And it's so hard because there's so many different levels of movement proficiency with these kids. I found that to be the most challenging.
It definitely is challenging because you could have somebody that has a very highly developed nervous system that the second you show them something, they can demonstrate it right off the bat and do it with great technique and perfection. And then you can do the same thing, same cue, same everything with a different kid, and they struggle with that a little bit, or they may not pick it up quite as quick. So you have to be able to really think on your feet and say, is this the best thing for this athlete? Do I need to regress this down? Do I need to slow him down or her down? What do I need to do to make this learning process a little bit easier? And that's why I always like the word facilitate, because facilitate by definition means I'm trying to make this easier. So when I'm working with those kids, my main role is to be a facilitator for the strength, for the weight room for them. So I want to make sure that I'm doing the things that need to be done for those individual athletes in a group setting that will lead them to success, because that's another thing that's highly motivational for kids, is they have to feel like they are getting better at something in order for them to continue to want to do it. So I agree with you 100%. That is very much the art of coaching as we see it.
Yeah, and what are those things that need to be done? Because here's the thing, too, when you have that team, I guess you could say some of the advanced, like the one kid, if I kind of had tried to kind of, please everybody, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I would be bringing him down to their standards, and I'd bring in one of the other kids, maybe too hard,
Right.
up to the other standards. So how do you kind of manage that? What are those things that you feel like that need to be done?
I really think that you have to spend some time, if you're going to do this, and develop a continuum, and know that exercises and programming exist on that one continuum. So I need to be able to surf those continuums, depending on what my athlete's showing me that day, what my athlete's showing me over the course of the program. So, for instance, if we're just going to keep it very simple, and the guys at Boyle's do this really well with their regression and progression charts, I think everybody needs to do that. I think everybody needs to say, hey, look, what are my big rocks? What are the exercises and movements that I want to teach? And then how can I surf that up to meet the needs of the athlete that gets it? And how can I surf that down the continuum to allow a longer learning process for the people or for the athletes that maybe don't get it quite as well? So if we're just using a basic squat, then maybe I say, okay, goblet squat's my standard. Well, if somebody's not getting it, maybe I need to go heel elevated squat with a med ball press out. And if they're still not getting it, maybe I need to assist them a little bit with something like rings or suspended or a suspension trainer or something. And if the ones that are really getting it and they demonstrate proficiency and quality movement and competency, and after they meet certain standards with our goblet squat, then those are the ones that we're going to put 2 kettlebell front squat or even barbell front squat if we're going to choose to clean those individuals or something like that. So I think everybody needs to have a plan, not just for the exercises, Anthony, but for their program as well. How can I surf those continuums to meet the needs of my athletes and put them in the best position to be successful?
Yeah, I found myself too, and tell me if you have to do this or if you actually specifically do it. I was really like setting them up in terms of like, I kept saying, guys, listen, you are not competing with each other. You're competing with yourself. I don't want you to look next to you. What we're looking at is improvement. So if you improve X%, that's what I'm really happy about, right? Over time, we want to all improve. I don't want you to be up to Dante's standards. I want you to be up to your standard. Talk to me about, like, specifically, are you doing that? Do you find yourself that you have to do that? Do you have to keep reminding these kids because they'll compete or they'll feel like, they might not want to come in because they'll be like, Drew is really strong and I don't want to be next to him?
Right. No, I think that's such a critical statement too, Anthony, because kids at the high school level right now and at the middle school level are dealing with so much other things from a social standpoint of trying to fit in and trying to figure out how to navigate this thing called life at that age. I think trying to get them to understand that it's not a competition; it's more about being better and improving within yourself, and that's one of the things we talk about right off the bat. Is I'm asking for 1%. And what do I mean by 1%? 1% just means that I need you to improve 1% today over where you were yesterday. And then we talk about, if we did that every day, whether it be with our schoolwork or whether it be with our relationships with our moms and dads and brothers and sisters, whether it be with our, with weight room, with load, if we can improve 1% a day, then we're going to be 365% better at the end of a year. So I think that helps them see that it's not, we're not looking to make these major jumps and hey, you don't have to win the state championship tomorrow. I just need you to be better at practice today. So we really hammer, and that's, when we get a new team, that's one of the first things we talk about is the value of 1% and the value of those small individual goals and stacking those on top of one another day in and day out, and then looking at where you are at the end of the year, not necessarily, and your lane is different than another athlete's lane and different than somebody else as well. So we try to value those small goals and those small wins and try to stack as many of them together as we can.
Yeah, and I know because you're in the private sector.
Yeah, sure.
One of the things for me that I was trying to hit home towards the last few sessions was I was like, guys, listen, because coaches are going to be in their ear too. And they might have a couple coaches in that weight room. And I said, don't let anybody influence you. And I was really proud that some of the guys, my kids were they were saying I can't go up another 5 this week or today. All right. No, this is a good weight for me. This is a good weight for me. I think I really felt good about it because I feel like they trusted me because I empowered them. I gave them that autonomy to say, you tell me what weight you should be using. Or is it hard to get to 4 reps or 5 reps? Or, and I really felt good because I don't want them going back to their programs and then trying to impress people.
Yeah, no, I love that. I love that you give them that autonomy and say, this is your choice. This 5 pound, because it's funny, right? You work with them all the time. Is those kids know, they know that 5 pounds is maybe a little bit too heavy, or that this next weight or this next movement may be a little bit ambitious, and they feel more comfortable with that. And so having those kind of conversations is crucial. We always say, okay, I want us to start, because kids feel different on different days too. If you're going to give me 3 sets of 8, here's what I'm looking for. I want a light set that's really easy. I want a medium set, and then I want a heavy set. It doesn't mean that your heavy set has to be as heavy as you've ever gone before. If you're feeling good, do that. But I just need those 3 things. I need a light set, I need a medium set, and then I need a heavy set. And then we always ask them, hey, how'd that feel? If it looked weird or if it looked a little awkward, we'll ask that athlete, hey, how'd that feel? We'll get that feedback, and then we say, okay, look, all right, it's your choice. You can go up, you can go down, and you can stay the same. What do you want to do on your next set? So we give them those choices as opposed to saying, all right, everybody in here has to meet, everybody in here has to, deadlift 400 and clean 300 and clean and squat 300. We don't do that. We want them to get again, we're trying to get them to improve on an individual basis. So we give them a lot of autonomy and a lot of choice with that.
Yeah, I think this is a good segue into, you talked earlier, you have your own definition of mental toughness. So I want to go over that because I think, it's another thing we need to educate them on, because understanding it's to me it's tough to not say no, I'm not going to go up. To me, you just displayed a lot of mental toughness by doing that, and I'm proud of them. Talk to me about your definition of mental toughness, because again, that is something that they're going to have to deal with when they're with their team.
Yeah, no, you're exactly right. I think that, as far as my definition of mental toughness is I want to see you do the little things that add up to big progress. And what I mean by that is, are you on time? Do you keep up with the weight selection? Are you positive in the weight room? You deal with a lot of other stuff as far as like, going to school, and are you doing your homework? Are you keeping up with other responsibilities? Are you a good teammate? Do you lift each other up? Do you not, talk bad about the coach behind their back? Like, those are things that to me, build more mental toughness than can you get through a hard workout. Because, in my experience with athletes, when you're asking them to do something, just by the nature of them, being an athlete and having a little bit of drive just to be on the team, very rarely are they doing something with lack of effort. I mean, does it happen? Yeah, I'm sure it happens. But I bet you 9 times out of 10, if you go back and ask that athlete, hey, what's going on today? They're going to let you know something as to why maybe their effort wasn't there. I have a great example. Just this past week, we watched a girl play in a soccer game. And she's normally, she's all about it. I mean, she's very fast. She's a very highly skilled player. And, for whatever reason, the effort just wasn't there that night. And then the next day they come in for a recovery session to come in and get into the weight room a little bit. And she comes up to me, 20 minutes into the workout, sounds terrible. She has, you can hear the congestion in her throat. And she's like, hey coach, can I sit out? I don't feel good. And you can hear it in her voice. You can see it in her eyes that she's very sick. So, if we had hammered her about effort, like we may have done some damage to her, mentally and psychologically, in the game, and took her out of her game because, hey, coaches, I'm doing the best I can. And she may not even have known she was sick. She may have woken up the next, everybody's been there. You felt, great one day and terrible the next. She may not even have known that she was trying to fight off something. So, our definition of mental toughness is, are you doing the little things that are going to make yourself better every day and every week, every month? And are you not letting outsiders influence those decisions? And that, to me, will demonstrate a lot more mental toughness than being drugged through, of the 150 burpee session or punishment runs or something of that nature. I tell you, if you want a really good definition, I think a really good friend of mine, Brendan Rierick, you know him as well. He had a great Instagram post on mental toughness that kind of talks about the same thing. About, it's not just being able to get through a hard workout, because any athlete that wants to stay on the team, they will, a lot of times they'll pace themselves just to get through a hard workout, or a hard conditioning session. And you're not getting the, if you're trying to get faster, or you're trying to get more explosive, like they're not giving you the intensity at which those adaptations will occur, because they're just trying to get through it. So I question some of those strategies sometimes from what we see out there.
Absolutely. Drew, you said you didn't have any standards. I actually was, it's funny because, I guess I didn't, but I did. Like, I didn't put any pressure on them,
right.
But I didn't say like, hey guys, we're all going to do double body weight trap bar. And what I really wanted to see was like, I wanted to see them, but with the cleans, I just wanted to see really good. Like, I kept them at like a couple of guys at like 65 pounds. They all weigh like between 140 and 150. But I was like, let's just get these reps in. Let's just do this every session. Let them learn it. They'll get it. They got better. That's what just from the eye test, they got a lot better. And I was able to add a little bit of weight, nothing crazy. One of the kids, the good kid was, he almost got to body weight with that, which was fine. But you don't have any standards for, like, you try not to put any standards on them in terms of like, with numbers?
Yes. Yeah. So we don't actually. It is something that we're looking at, again, heavily influenced by Brendan Rierick's talk at Perform Better. It may be something that we look at, but it's not going to be anything crazy. I like the idea of being able to, before you move into a different variation of an exercise, being able to handle, let's just say, half your body weight for 10 reps on a goblet squat before moving to a front squat. It's going to be things like that. Like, we're trying to build you up to that. And then, just can you deadlift the 132-pound kettlebell that we have? Okay, great. You can do that for 10 reps. Then that just basically what that does for us is it opens up our exercise library to that individual a little bit more. But as far as like, hey, you have to be this strong, or you have to meet this amount of weight or amount of load, things like that, we don't. If we had kids, maybe longer, because like you said, we are a private facility. So a lot of times with teams that we'll train, they'll come in and we'll get these guys for, we'll only get them for 12 weeks, maybe 8 weeks at a short time, 16 weeks at a longer time. So, you're talking about an athlete or a team that hasn't trained, and you've got 16 weeks, twice a week, maybe 3 times a week with them. The first thing we're going to do is not, max out their squat or bench or deadlift or anything else like that. We want to make sure that they move well, they move with good competency, and they move with good strength. And we have some standards, but not necessarily, we don't have any of those goals like, okay, you need to be in the 1,000-pound club or whatever that means. And it's funny because, kids will do that. And if you say, okay, guys, here's what we're trying to get to. We're trying to get to half your body weight. Hey, I want to try that today. Well, let's stay here, for today. And then one person does it. And then that just kind of creates a cascade effect, and then other people do it, and you'll see that kind of happen. And that builds that team chemistry and things like that. So we don't necessarily have set standards. We just have ideas of where we want to get kids to before we transition them into more advanced exercises is probably the best way to say it.
Yeah, and also I think I kept in the back of my head, I had that, one of the kids is going to like a really high level prep school. Actually, they won the national championship last year, and so great. I know he's going to have to be proficient in the moves, but also pick up some heavier weight. There's some things that he's going to have to do. So I kind of like had that in the back of my mind too. We talk about with Coach Boyle on this too, like even for some people at MBSC, if they're going to a program that requires them to test for back squat, they're going to do some back squatting for them, and like that's kind of what, I didn't do any back squat with my guys, but, I kind of did some things with that in mind in the back of my mind. So good stuff.
Yep, absolutely.
Talk to me about, this idea of high school and middle school. Middle school, I know with the one kid that I was talking about, Dante, for me, I really just tried to make it fun. And I tried to make it these sessions that I just did in the 8 weeks was an hour and a half. But the middle school, when they were a little... Yeah. But, we hammered out like a nice long warm up. We did some jump throw sprint, which we're going to talk to you about in a minute. The cleans, I was spending a lot of time on the cleans because I wanted them to learn them, and I didn't want to pressure them or push them in. And I wanted to make sure we got some reps in for that as well. And then we went to strength. But again, I wanted to make sure that I was like giving them enough time. So I did get the hour and a half with them, but really when Dante was in the middle school, I did an hour. I made it fun. We did a lot of playing basketball and hockey, like getting pig or whatever, just messing around. And, what's the difference for you? How's the approach different for your middle school athletes?
Our middle school athletes, we like to tell, and especially parents that come in and ask, what are they going to do? Because we'll still get parents that come in and in a middle school program, we're talking about like a 10 or 11-year-old kid, and they're like, hey, is this going to be challenging for my son or my daughter? Is this going to push them? Is this going to, is this going to be hard enough for them? And we kind of detour some of those statements and say, we're going to teach your kid how to train. So our middle school program, our whole philosophy is we are teaching them how to train. So that when they do get to a high school level, whether or not they train with us, or with their team with us, they're going to be able to walk into any high school program that they go into, and they're going to be safe and they're going to be effective in the weight room. That's our biggest concern with our middle school athletes. So we do a lot of like you said, just exactly kind of mimicking what you said earlier. We do a lot of, all right, we're going to spend time with our 15-pound training bars. And that's the group that's always asking, hey, can I go up? Can I go up? Can I go up? And we're kind of like, hey, that looks pretty good. Let's stay there for today. And maybe we can go up next week. Or, hey, that looks pretty, that looks really, really light. Like maybe we should try a little bit heavier on the next set. So we are literally trying to teach them how to train so that they know what to do when they get to that next level. And that's really, like I said, our philosophy in a nutshell. And we have to understand that middle school development from a mental standpoint and a training standpoint is going to be very, very different than the mental and the physical development of our high school kids and our college kids and things of that nature. So we do have to have some of those fun games. I love we put 9 rings out and we do, 2 teams, and then we give them a mini band and they play tic-tac. They'll sprint up and they can put the band in a ring. And then the next team will go and they'll spin up and they try to play tic-tac-toe that way. So they're getting, cognitive abilities within their training. But then you look at it and you're like, wow, they're getting some really good speed work. They're having to change levels from a high level to a lower level to put that band down. Like, it really gives us a lot of bang for our buck. So we try to incorporate, fitness type games and activities with them. And just like you said, like, sometimes, like, all right, guys, we had tempo sprints on the menu. You guys trained really well today. We're going to play sharks and minnows, or we're going to play, trash can ball, or, hey, it's the start of the football season right here in Tennessee. And if you've ever been in the SEC during football season, that's a big thing for us down here. So we'll play, all right, I'm the coach is the quarterback and we're going to run routes. And I don't care if you've never played defense, you're going to play defense. And that way it exposes them to different things as well, too. I mean, you ever watch a soccer girl try to play defensive back on a basketball guy, it's stuff like that, but it exposes them to those different movements and exposes them to those different, to those different inputs, and they have to think on their feet and they have to be athletic. And, we try to have a good time with it. So I think that's the big thing with middle school is teach them how to train and then sprinkle in some of that fun stuff. If you're getting out of them what you want.
Very cool. I mentioned jump, throw, sprint before. I just want to go over really quick what I mean by jump, throw, sprint. I combine those 3. So I got this from Coach Boyle, really, this idea. But and I had the guys 3 days a week. So I had a linear day, a lateral day, and a rotational day. And then I could, we would do our jumps first and then into a med ball exercise, and then they would go out and do either like a flying 10 or start, a standing 10, just right from standing, and we would just repeat that 3 times. What does jump, throw, sprint mean for you, and how do you use it?
We kind of started that little hashtag jump, throw, sprint, and we stole it outright from Coach Boyle too. I think he had put it on a couple of his programs, and I was like, wait, there's something to that. There's a lot of things to that jump, throw, sprint, and we started kind of looking at what is athleticism. And athleticism is just that, can you jump? Can you throw? Can you sprint? And what I mean by throw is can you summate enough force to put into an object to where, you can make that thing, fly out of your hands or produce, power and things like that from a total body standpoint. So we looked at that and thought, hey, there's a lot more to this jump, throw, sprint regarding, transfer to the field, maybe more so than the weight room. And, somebody asked me the other day, they said, on a Facebook post, they said, hey, coach, what is jump, throw, sprint? Is it a standalone program or is it part of a larger program? And my answer was simple. It said, it's the athletic portion of our strength training. And this is where we feel it's got the highest transfer. And we are trying to, and this is the biggest change we're putting into our program, is we're going to put, a lot more emphasis on the jumps, the throws, and the sprints, and then use the exercises and the strength training to supplement our jump, throw, sprint program versus saying, hey, this is what we're going to do, and then we're going to get in the weight room and we're going to, be savages and be strong. Like, we're trying to put a major emphasis on our jump, throw, sprint, and are we improving in that areas? We have a just jump mat. We've got a Broward timing system. We're looking at med balls where we can, maybe measure some speed and stuff like that to where we can see, are we getting those, improvements athletically with our jump, throw, sprint, and then using our weight room time to supplement that. and almost, I can't remember who I got this. I think it was Andy McCloy. We're trying to make the weight room the supplement, not the show. And we're trying to make, the jump, throw, sprint the show, because if you look at any athlete that's good or that you like wow at, like a LeBron James. When I was growing up, it was Barry Sanders. You look at those guys and you think, man, like they run around the field and court like a super bouncy ball, like the little 25-cent ball that you got if you were good at Pizza Hut. When I was growing up, mom would give you, a quarter and you could get in there. But that bouncy ball, man, if you bounced it, it would explode and it would go in different directions, and it would absorb force and it would create force super quickly. So that's what we're trying to do with our jump, throw, sprint portion of our sport performance program, and we're moving towards a greater emphasis on that than maybe even the weight room.
Yeah, I think we're seeing a lot more of that. I wasn't really messing with him, but Coach Boyle, I was telling him, I said, your next big thing is going to be, you're going to tell us you're not doing cleans anymore, because,
and he's got to have something, right? He's got to shake up something, right?
Exactly. So, and I probably only did the cleans with these guys because, like, if I really was truthful, really the one kid needed it. He's going on to the big program right now. He's going into 10th grade and he's, heading for Division I, hopefully in college. So I said, he needs to like get these reps in for the cleans. And so we do hang clean. We weren't doing power cleans.
Sure.
And I probably wouldn't have done it in this group if it wasn't for him. I probably would have taken out, but I certainly would have, the jump, throw, sprint. I agree. I was like a really important piece for me, but we did do some Olympic lifting. Are you shifting away from some Olympic lifting, or are you going to be the same? Because some of your kids, especially down there with football, are going to be going to some big programs, and even in high school, and they're going to have to know that stuff. So what's your thoughts on, going in that direction?
I don't think that we can, take those out completely and things like that, because like you said, just the fact that, hey, if our goal is to develop these people for the next level, what are they going to have to do at the next level? So, from a foundational standpoint, we're still going to want to train the clean. We're still going to want to train, being explosive with things like dumbbell snatches and swings and things of that nature. So I still think that has a major role in developing that athleticism and that body coordination and synchronization of muscle groups and things of that nature to make them more athletic. Because I think it would be hard to argue that Olympic lift and the variations of Olympic lift and being explosive with weight is highly athletic. So I think that we still have to understand that that's going to be asked of them at the next level, and our job is to try to get them proficient as necessary or as they can with those. Now, with that being said, is it the best choice for every athlete that walks in the door? In my opinion, it's not. I think that you could absolutely have a bang up program and not include the Olympic lifts and the variations. I think that you could, if you really hammered that jump, throw, sprint, I think, maybe, Eric Cressy's place, they, to my knowledge, I haven't talked to him or anything like that, but, that they're not teaching a lot of dumbbell snatch, clean stuff like that. They're getting it with being very aggressive with med balls and teaching great sprint mechanics and jumping single leg and double leg. So, I don't think it's necessary to have a great program if you are not comfortable coaching it, or if you coach it and maybe your kids just aren't getting it because it is highly technical, then you might be wasting valuable training time.
Yeah.
Trying to get them technically proficient enough to train it. And I think that's kind of where those exercises fall in, is you've got to have that time to get the technical proficiency right before you can actually train the lift. And then you have to ask yourself, okay, do I have time for this? With guys that train with us for 16 weeks, that's our phase one, because now I know I can get, we can try to get them as technically proficient as we can with that first phase. And then we can have three good phases or 12 good weeks of training that. And quite honestly, some kids just don't get it. And that's perfectly okay too. So again, going back to that continuum idea, what do you have what else falls into that clean continuum that you can go back on and say, hey, you know what, Max, we're not going to clean today. We're going to do dumbbell jump shrug or trap bar jump shrug, which I'm becoming a big fan of the kettlebell jump and the trap bar jump in lieu of Olympic lifting. The more we get into it, because kids just look better sooner.
Yeah.
You know, with stuff like that. So I think you can do it, but it's not a necessary. It's not a necessity.
Yeah, good point. Good point. Drew, how do you approach the female training? Are you approaching training, these high school females any differently than the males?
We're not, and I'll tell you right now, and with depending on how many people hear this, but like I would much rather get a group of females that will come in here and train. They train brutally hard, and the good thing about a lot of the females that we train in here, or that come to us, they don't come to us with a lot of bad habits, but they come to us with great movement foundation. So a lot of them, if you watch a lot of our females, we're not fixing a lot of movement patterning or doing a lot of regressive stuff, because they move so well out of the gate. Especially at that level, and guys kind of catch up later. But our female athletes, we don't train them any differently. We try to put more emphasis, honestly, on with our females. If I said the only thing that we would do differently with our females is we try to train them to be more quote unquote aggressive, and to be hey, when you throw that med ball, I want you to think about breaking that med ball against our glass wall. I want you to think about busting that med ball wide open. When you sprint down the track, I want you to think about attacking the track. So we use words like attack and sprint and pop and things like that to really teach some of that aggressive actions with our females, because we want them to do that. And when you do that, we see not only does their strength go up, but we get stories all the time for parents that, hey, my girl is more confident. She walks taller. Her posture's better. We get some of those added benefits just by doing that. So, I mean, I know I've gone on a long time. If you can't tell, I love to train those female athletes, but we don't necessarily train them differently in the weight room. But what we say and how we approach how we train them is a little bit different for sure.
Love it. Love it. Anybody who follows you on social media knows you have this beautiful little firecracker that you're raising. She's awesome, Hope. And now, like, I've seen Hope do some Olympic lifting, actually. Yeah. And, how has Hope changed the way you've kind of coached, maybe? Because, I mean, like, look, you might not give Olympic lifts to the other 9-year-old girls, right? But Hope's probably always at the gym because you're there, but so she can do it. But how has Hope changed some of your ideas on training and being a dad?
Well, I mean, golly, we could have another podcast just on being a dad. I mean, just from the standpoint of her coming into our lives, when she did and things like that. I mean, she's the best thing that's ever happened to me, from a maturity standpoint and from, being a man and being a father standpoint, for sure. It's the first time in my life that I can remember thinking, hey, it's not just about you anymore. That, every decision that you make now, there's somebody else's life that's going to be directly affected by the choices that you make. And it's not just on you anymore. So, as far as like, how she's changed me being a father, and I love it. I love that job. That's my favorite job, honestly. My favorite job is being Hope's dad, and my second favorite job is being the director here at Game Time with our great staff. But as far as weight stuff goes, she'll have to listen to that. Maybe like when she's being, a typical teenager later on, she can listen to that and know that dad really loves her. But as far as the lifting stuff goes, Anthony, it was funny. She was around a lot, obviously, with her being here. She's grown up in the weight room, and she's always kind of been drawn to it. I mean, she would hang out on the pull-up bars, and she could do pull-ups when she was 5 or 6 years old, and she still can. She can still go out and bang out 5, and she does push-ups really, really well, and things like that. So one day we were teaching the girls, the soccer girls, one of our teams, to clean, and we use a very simple cueing system. We teach the setup by saying, hey, push your chest through your shoulders, and curl your wrist underneath. So we just say chest and wrist, and then we just say bend your knees, and that just kind of keeps the bar nice and high in that hip notch. And then from there, if we've done what we're supposed to do from a standpoint of progression, and we've taught them where to catch it and how to catch it, then we just say, jump and catch. So literally, our cues when we get it going is chest, wrist, knees, jump and catch, and then we'll refine it from there. And she would repeat that. It's really funny, like, chest, wrist, knees, jump and catch, and then it got to be a game, right? Like we would get it. I was like, hey Hope, come teach these girls how to clean. And she picked up one of our dowel rods, and she was like, in her, at the time probably 6 or 7 years old, and she was like, you're gonna do this, and you're gonna do this, and you're just gonna jump and catch. And I mean, she popped it up there, and it was quick, it was aggressive. It was, obviously it wasn't perfect, but I was like, wow, like that's really, I was not expecting that. Like I would have thought that would have been a little bit more of a struggle for her.
Yeah. So has that changed the way you've kind of like thought about like what you can teach young ladies?
Yeah, it really has. It really has. Again, because I think they come to us with such a better movement competency level. We can get into that, and I don't know that there's research out there, but I think women are way more in tune with their bodies, meaning they probably have a little bit better kinesthetic sense and awareness than maybe guys at that age, because she can now tell you kind of what she did wrong and things like that. And I don't know. I coach our middle school sometimes, but I don't know that my middle school boys could tell me the same thing. And so one day, she grabbed the training bar, which is a 15-pound bar, and she popped it up like it was nothing. So now Dad's curious, right? Like, okay, like, all right, what can you do? We put 2.5s on there, and she pops it up. And I was like, okay, don't be that guy. I don't want to max, you know what I mean? So I told her to stay with the orange plates. That's what they are, the 2.5s. I said, you stay with the orange plates, and you can clean as much as you want to. And Anthony, she'd come in here, and she'd get the bar down, and she'd do cleans, and then she'd go jump on boxes for a little bit. Or she may come into my office and read or color or cut something up on my desk, and then she'd go back out there and she'd do 3 or 4 cleans, and she'd go jump on boxes and climb on the Move Strong unit and things like that. So it wasn't anything that I did from a structured standpoint.
Yeah.
And then after she got good at it, I thought, one day I said, hey, try the blue ones. So then she put the blue ones on there, which are 5 pounds on the end of a training bar, and she popped that up there pretty quick. And we did the same thing. Like, okay, now you can use the blue ones, and I kind of let her go on her way. And then we did that, and now she's up to 10s on either side of a training bar, and we're trying to stay there and things of that. But really, what changed for me was, hey, these young females can really understand this, and they can do it. And as long as you keep it simple and don't give them too much to think about, they're going to say, motor learning, 101, they're going to self-organize, and they're going to figure out the best way to do it. And if the best way to do it looks like you want it to look, and it looks athletic and it's snappy, and everything after that is refinement. Hey, let's catch the bar a little deeper, or hey, let's get those elbows up a little higher, or just refining that movement. But from a gross motor pattern standpoint, she really, Hope really changed and said, hey, we can probably do a lot more with these kids than we probably think we can. It doesn't have to be this, technical bang, 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 bang thing. Like, hey, chest, wrist, bend your knees, jump and catch. Can you do it?
Yeah.
And that really changed, my philosophy on that for sure.
Yeah, truly the art of coaching there, right? I mean, it's like you got to find that you find that balance. I think with the, one thing I was thinking, and we talked a little bit about this earlier with like, the guys looking over their shoulders is like, the females a lot of times in their head, they're not thinking, oh, I have to get to a certain strength level. They,
Right.
They just want to do it well. Like, and so some of the guys might look at it and be like, they might have that, they'd be self-conscious about what they're doing and what weight they're using, and it might mess with them in the movement. So
you're exactly right. That's a great point. And, something we probably hadn't looked at much, but yeah, they, guys tend to, hey, what's he doing over there? Let me try that. And they may not be ready for it. Girls don't do that. Girls walk up to what they, we have to be with our girls. We have to walk up and say, hey, I think you can take 5 more pounds, or I think you can go up 10 pounds. But like, as far as like looking at the next person and going, hey, I've got to get there. We don't see that a lot with our female athletes, which allows us to train better, efficiency. And in that case, they get really, really strong and impressive for sure.
Very cool. Well, Drew, this has been awesome. I am so glad you came up to me after my lecture and asked me about this, and we got to talk, because you're doing some great stuff. I already knew that. With coming down and doing a Strength Coach TV at game time. So I really appreciate you coming on and talking all about high school and middle school female training. So thanks so much for doing this.
Anthony, I can't, like I said, it's the gold standard, and I keep saying that. And you have provided, I know you posted something the other day on Instagram about how you've, been doing this for such a long time, and you have provided so much educational content that is free. If you just download the apps and listen to them, it has been my pleasure. And I love these things. I listen to every one that you put out there, and it's just been a great honor. And thank you so much.
All right, that's going to do it for episode 261 of the Strength Coach Podcast. Remember, you can try strengthcoach.com out 3 days, just $1. You'll have access to all the articles, videos, and programs, as well as the best forum on the net. It's the only place to have full access to Coach Boyle. He's on every day. To access that offer, go to strengthcoach.com. Click the Join Now button to get started on your trial. All right, special thanks to Chris Pryor and the folks over at Perform Better. Right now, they got the big summer sale. 40% off so many items. Biggest sale of the year. You got to take advantage of this. Check it out at performbetter.com for all their products and info on their educational seminars. Thanks to Coach Boyle and Drew Massey for sharing their insights and philosophies into the world of strength conditioning and performance enhancement. Thanks to Adam Doughty, Tim Robinson, and Train Heroic. Head over to trainheroic.com. Start your free 14-day trial. Let them know Anthony sent you. You'll save 10% off your first year of the Train Heroic Pro or Elite Editions. Thanks to Rachel Cosgrove for the Results Fitness University Business of Fitness segment. Check them out at resultsfitnessuniversity.com. Jenna Gorley and Functional Movement Systems. Check them out at functionalmovement.com. My name is Anthony Renna. Go to continuefit.com to sign up for the Success Series. 5 audio interviews on success in the fitness business. It's the basis of my upcoming book, Be Like the Best, coming out in October. Sign up there. You'll get advance notice about what's happening with the book and the launch. Thanks again, and I will speak to you next time.